Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome from a man coming in. Well, I thought it was the west coast of the US, but it's actually the east coast of the US. Just saying how good my geography is. Coming in from Virginia Beach, Mr. Bob Pizzini, commonly referred to as Robert, only when he's in trouble. Welcome to the podcast, Bob.
Thanks, Darren. It's pretty cool to be talking to somebody literally on the other side of the planet.
It is, and you were telling me before that you have been to Australia a few times. You were based in Guam when you're in the Navy, so you've had a little bit of an experience of the Australian culture and some of the Australian people, including our sense of humour. So looking forward to this, and we've already done a little bit of a precursor to this conversation before you press record. And hey, there's no questions listed, so we'll see how we go.
Love it.
So, mate, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because you've got a military background, you run a multi-million-dollar business, you're an author, you're a keynote speaker and you're a consultant, and you specialize in leadership, particularly health and wellness, which we'll talk about around leadership. You're Chief Executive Officer at iFly VA Beach, or Virginia Beach. Is that right? Virginia Beach?
Yep, that's right. Yes.
Indoor skydiving, which I think we've got one in Melbourne at the Essendon Airport. So I must say, never have participated myself, but maybe it's something I should look to do.
You'd love it. It's indoor, it's safe, it's fun. Kids as young as 3 do it.
Is that right?
I could probably get you a discount. So yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that after the podcast, maybe. So before we jump into the conversation, love for you to give us just a bit of a background in terms of what you learnt through your military career, but also what has led you to now be entrepreneur. And by the way, I also forgot to say you're also a podcaster. So you run a podcast called Elevate Your Leadership. You wrote the book Elevate Your Leadership.
Yes,
love
sir.
for you to give us a bit of background in terms of what you've done and what's led you to do what you do today.
Sure. So briefly, as a young man, very young man, I grew up watching something called The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. And I was enamored with all things diving, the underwater realm. You know, Jacques Cousteau and his aquanauts were making these incredible underwater discoveries. And so diving, being part of the underwater realm, was something I knew I wanted to do. When I was in high school, I learned about this job description called Navy diver, U.S. Navy diver. And boom, I was locked in. That's what I wanted to do. Fast forward, I'm a Navy diver. I'm living the dream, so to speak. And I learned about this thing called Navy EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. Bomb technician, if you will. I didn't even know it existed when I was in high school. Didn't know what a SEAL was when I was in high school. But Navy EOD, Navy bomb techs, were a special operating force. And we have the mobility skills of parachute, of diving, of rappelling and fast roping out of helicopters, and all the other things that you see. But more importantly, we're a team, very small team of people who are very mission focused. Obviously, if you don't get it right with explosives, the results can be dramatic and irreversible. Yeah. So you have to learn fast. You have to learn complex things very fast, and you have to execute very quickly. And I point that out because that's really what led to my career after the Navy. I was willing to assess risk and to take risk, in this case in the business world, and establish a business that is unique unto itself, indoor skydiving. But my military background, my mission focus, my ability to develop a business plan which was coherent, and here we are 10 years later. So that's really how I leveraged what I did and what I learned in the military and brought it into the private sector. And the beauty of that is I have 40 people on my team. And so the team dynamic, the leadership incubator that I sit in every single day is dynamic, and it's ever changing, and it's fun, and I get to hopefully enable others to accomplish their objectives. I get to enrich the lives of others if I use what I've learned properly. I'll catch my breath there.
No, I love it, love it. So there's a lot in that. I mean, first of all, enamored with underwater. So you could have. I mean, that's amazing. Um, but the bomb disposal, bomb disposal, right? Here I am thinking, oh, you could be a diver, you could work in submarines, but no, no, no. We want to go and try to detect and hopefully um, safely not detonate bombs, but to do that. What was it about that? Was it just a sense of adventure, or was it the challenge? Was it the trying to see how far you could extend yourself whilst also staying safe and keeping those around you safe?
It was really a combination of everything you mentioned and a couple other things. So definitely a sense of adventure. There's a risk. There's a requirement to really know what you're doing. But even more than that, there's a requirement to really rely on your teammates.
Mm,
And that's, I think, what attracted me more than anything else is this very small unit team structure where not only are you relying on them, but they're relying on you. And that's just it gave me such a sense of purpose and significance. It's significant that they rely on me and that I rely on them, and how can I be the best teammate I can be every day. And I'll be the first to admit I was not the best teammate every day, generally speaking. But when it came to explosives, things went well throughout my career, and it was an honor and a privilege. And I learned so much from people who have gone before me. Unfortunately, I know several people who are buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and although I did a combat tour, and I came home, several of my teammates did not,
yeah.
and that's an unfortunate part of it, but it's part of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, when you go into that, you've got to know what the risks are going to be and the price that some will ultimately pay. Not that you want that to happen, but it is an eventuality when you're in some form of combat. Um, from a leadership point of view, 26 years in the military, and because I want to sort of delve into what you do today, and including your keynote speaking and your podcast. When you think about your time in the military, 26 years, there would be lots of different people that get attracted to, say, the Navy or the Army or what have you. What sort of lessons did you take from that through either working with different people or observing leaders within, I guess, the hierarchical structure of the military that kind of gave you the foundation to now use that post your service within the military?
Sure. So in the book and in the course that I offer here at iFly, I talk about one thing in particular, something I call a defining moment. So I learned several things, but I learned one lesson, the lesson that has stuck with me and something I still think about every day. And it's a time when I was young in my career, but I was a fast mover. I was a high performer and got a little too big for my britches, if you will. And I messed something up. And my commanding officer at the time could have really he could have really hammered me. But he looked at me and he said, this mistake that this young man made is not representative of the young man that I know. In other words, my ego got in my way on this particular day,
Yeah.
but it didn't normally get in my way. And thank God I had a commanding officer who was so advanced in his leadership that he recognized that. And rather than end my career, he put me on a path for recovery. Now, he made it painful, and rightfully so, but he put me on a path for recovery. And so the big lesson is, as a leader, you have to require 100% from those you lead. If
Mm,
you accept less than 100%, you're going to get less than 100%, and you're going to go nuts at some point. Number two is, as somebody who is led, you owe your leader 100%.
yeah.
If you can't give your leader 100%, go work somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's no well, we usually do what he says, or, seven, I'll give him 70. There's nothing short of 100 that's acceptable. It's really just the way it is in the workplace. But number three, and this is the most important thing, when somebody comes up short of 100%, if they're bought into their mission, to the mission, if their intent was well placed, if that mistake didn't represent the person that then put them on a path for recovery.
Mm.
And that's what my commanding officer did during this particular situation in 1998. And that's something I think about as a leader now when people make mistakes on my team. Were they bought in? Was their intent well placed? And if so, then be a solid leader
Mm.
and lead that person through recovery rather
Mm.
than destroying them. And that gets to a whole nother thing about why are some people forgiven versus some people are fired.
Well, and that was the question I was going to ask you, because as a leader, I'm thinking, okay, because I love the principle is, hey, what is the intent of the person? Now, in order to understand the intent of the person, you probably need to understand really deeply the person, their characteristics, what makes them tick, what their values are, and what their past performance is, so that something happens and you think, well, that's out of character. That is not what I know to be true about that person. Therefore, I can give them the benefit of the doubt. Versus if a leader is not doing that, who doesn't necessarily care and maybe just treats their team as numbers, then they're probably going to be more clinical and say, you didn't do what we wanted you to do. Sorry, you're out of here. So was it because of the relationship that had been developed that there was a level of trust that that choice was made, or was it something different?
No, you hit the nail on the head. It was definitely because of our relationship. We had a tremendous professional relationship. We respected each other. We still do today, as a
Okay.
matter of fact. But we respected each other back then, and I put him in a difficult spot.
Yeah.
And there were other people, other officers who advised him who wanted to really throw the book at me, if you will.
Hmm.
And but I think it was that personal relationship and my reputation for performance, my reputation as somebody who was very professional and very disciplined in my execution of our mission and our skills.
Yeah.
And so I think all of that led to his decision, which which thankfully turned out to be the right decision.
Well, and it's a great lesson in terms of backing your people and having belief in your people, but also having the care and the candor where, okay, he put you on a path of recovery, but you did mention that it wasn't easy. So he kind of made you earn it. But when you think about that, he would have literally stuck his neck out for you. So his reputation's now on the line. So if there
Exactly
wasn't a
right.
level of trust there, he probably wouldn't have gone down that path. But because he did, and because he cared for you, you've probably done, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but you probably did whatever you did or whatever you needed to do, either to repay his faith, show that you're worthy of continuing within the service, etc.
It's exactly right. As I mentioned in the book, I literally moved at 1,000 miles per hour to regain the faith. And there was a path. Again, he put me on a path. Hey,
Yeah.
here's all the things you're going to have to do to regain my trust. And believe me, I couldn't get it done fast enough.
Mm.
And to take this point to the next level, though, what I've discovered in the private sector, I've been in the private sector now for 15 years,
Mm.
and what I've discovered is uh, people are very quick to fire, or they're very quick to, they say hire slow, fire fast, but
Yeah.
people are very quick to not take that deeper look and say, hey, that was to you, you said it perfectly. That was out of character for this
Yeah.
person. And I think the best leaders take the time to evaluate those situations and say that, what's going on here is, and in my experience, I had a quick story. I had a chief who worked for me. He was a very good performer. And then one day he wasn't a very good performer. And there was this trend. And I took him out on a run one day and I said, hey, it's just me and you. Let's go out on a run and have a talk. And he said, I don't know. He said, he goes, I just can't, I can't keep my eyes open at work. I'm just exhausted all the time. And, he goes, I never felt this way before. He said, I was on my way to work, today or yesterday. And he said, I stopped at the traffic signal and I fell asleep at the traffic signal. And
Whoa.
yeah. And so clearly there's something going on here that needed medical attention in this case, right? And so that's what we did is we referred him rather than do some discipline and some performance
Mm.
improvement plan, and we just asked a series of questions and realized that there's potentially a medical issue here. Refer him to the proper clinicians, and it turned out he had sleep apnea. This guy was,
Wow.
even though he thought he was asleep at night, he wasn't, and he would stop breathing for periods of time. And so he had physiological issues when he showed up at work. But luckily we were able to identify that and correct that. And so that's just an example of how, really we all have personal lives, and nobody's personal life is smooth and easy all the time. And you might have a parent who's in failing health, or a child who's struggling in school. And all of those things are going to distract you when you're in the workplace. And
That's
leaders
it.
have to explore that, and they have to understand that. And most importantly, you have to help your people get through that.
Yes. And particularly if they've got a history of high performance, and we're not saying lower our standards because we want to have a high performing team and continue to grow that team and have really exceptional standards. But when things become obvious that they're not quite meeting the mark, you don't treat them with disrespect. You actually treat them with empathy, as long as you, and this is a key thing, as long as you genuinely care about your people. Because I'm very big on, and I know within the military it's all about servant leadership. How do we best serve our team? How do we actually, as a leader, give our team the best opportunity to shine? And when people are not up to the mark, don't discard them, help them, lift them up, because there might be, as you rightly said, there might be a key reason as to why they're not performing at the level they are. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily just their fault. It's not a choice they've made necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. And I have this whole other matrix that I use. It's called performance versus behavior. And, I didn't come up with it. I learned this or read this somewhere. I can't remember where, but performance is, are they great at their job in the private sector? Is ROI up because this person's doing a great job? That's performance.
Hmm.
And then behavior. What is their moral and ethical character? Is there, are they there for the team? Are they a great teammate? And so when you balance performance versus behavior, that can be kind of tricky, but you can have a super high performer with super low behavior, and
Yeah,
that's poison for the rest of the
that's
team.
right. Get rid
Yeah,
of them.
get ready quick as you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You could have a super high behaving person, again, moral and ethical character, and they're struggling in their performance. Perhaps retrain them, perhaps assign them to something else, but moral and ethical character in the workplace is the gold standard.
Totally.
And I can work with anybody who, again, their intent is well placed,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that's kind of how you have to balance, or you have to look at that, when you approach a situation.
I love that. In Australia, we have, I'm not sure whether you use this term in the US, but we have a lot of companies and teams, especially sporting teams, that have what's called a no dickhead policy, right? So we don't allow any dickheads to come in here, which are people who have low standards, who maybe are there for self-serving reasons and not a team player. We don't want those sort of people. We want people who are there to play their role, help others around them become better, to lift the team up. And through that, you'll have a high performing team in most cases, as long as you've got a
Yeah,
great leader.
100%. One of the things I personally onboard all my new team members, and one of the things I talk about is, along the lines of what you just said, is everything we say and do, and hopefully everything we think in the workplace, is number one in the best interest of the organization. Number two, in the best interest of your teammates.
Hmm.
And self-interest comes after that. There's nothing wrong with self-interest. But support the organization, support your teammates, and self-interest is fulfilled, really, if you do that.
Totally. Totally. I
Yeah,
mean, and the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize is, and I didn't say this, but it was somebody else said this. But givers gain. So if you give because it's the right thing to do, you're going to gain probably more than you'd ever expect to gain. But if you
100%.
do things so that you can receive things as a transaction, then energetically you're not going to get as much as you could.
Yeah, no, that's something that we consciously talk about. I'm in some other leadership groups here in Virginia Beach, and that's one of the concepts we talk about all the time. And it's so true. I was asked to give a keynote to an organization last week, um, um, to donate the keynote, and
Out of the goodness of
and
your heart, Bob.
yeah. But this is an organization that I have a lot of respect for. And it was their annual strategic offsite. And they said, hey, we're doing our 1 day, our full day offsite. And, would you come in and keynote for an hour? And they said, by the way, you're welcome to spend as much of the day or the whole day with us, whatever your schedule allows.
Yeah,
And I just thought to myself, I'm going to spend the whole day with them because I know this group of people and they're high performers, and whatever they're going to talk about, I'm going to benefit from.
yeah, yeah.
So give more than you get. I went and gave a 1 hour keynote and I got a full day of executive level education. It was awesome.
Love that. And the good thing about it is you're doing it because you're, I guess, donating your time, donating your expertise and your perspectives. But we know that that's going to come back at some stage, and you're going to be rewarded for that because it was the good that you put out.
Yeah, that's right. You just got to be consistent. You got to be around long enough. You have to have that commitment to your community, or,
Yeah,
whatever your dynamic is.
100%. So, I want to get into parts of your book and talk specifically about health and wellness from a leadership point of view. I am curious though, after 26 years in the Navy, you have then spent 15 years in private enterprise and running one of the franchises at iFly. Um, what was it that attracted you to move into that? Because you could have done a heap of stuff.
Yeah.
What was it about that particular business that was attractive? And you've now gone on and built, you mentioned before you had 40 people and you do all the onboarding, and obviously a lot of the lessons you've learned from the Navy you now implement into that business, and that's why it's successful. But what was it that attracted you to go into that business?
So, in my military career, Navy EOD techs were skydivers, were underwater divers, as we discussed. And in the skydiving role, one of my last assignments, right after I got back from Iraq, 2009, I was responsible for all the sustainment and advanced airborne training for about 1,200 troops, home ported here in Virginia Beach. In that airborne role, we would travel to these wind tunnels, these vertical wind tunnels or simulators. We'd go to 2 or 3 different locations, and while we were there doing our military training, we would see all the other units from Virginia Beach, and I'm talking SEAL teams and EOD teams, and the crux of the Special Operating Force. We would see them at these other locations, but we would also see mom, dad, and the kids having a wonderful family experience. So we saw the full business model play out. And we would always come back to Virginia Beach, whether we're driving back or flying back from Arizona, whatever it was. And it's like, why isn't there one of these things in Virginia Beach? We're a tourist destination. We have all this beautiful ocean front. We've got the highest level of military special operating forces in the world, home ported right here. We all have this training requirement. Why isn't there one in Virginia Beach? So that was 2009. I knew I was getting ready to retire at that point. And I called the manufacturer of the equipment. iFly is the brand. And I said, hey, what's going on in Virginia Beach? I'd like to try and get something going here. And they said, well, there's a lot of interest. They said, if we'll take your name and number. We're working with other groups right now, but if you want, we'll take your name and number, and maybe we'll call you back. Maybe we won't. Hung up the phone, and I thought that was the end of it. 3 months later, we had just returned. Now, again, this is 2009, maybe 2010. We had just returned from a jump training trip in Arizona, a 2-week trip. And our C-130, which is that tail ramp airplane, lands at our air base here. The ramp opens. I'm walking off the end of the ramp. I pulled my Motorola Razr flip phone out of my pocket.
I had
I
one of
open,
those.
yeah, exactly. I open it up, I turn it on, and it's ringing. And it's iFly calling me back, literally after I just got done with this jump trip, going, "Why isn't there an iFly in Virginia Beach?" And they're calling me back saying, "Are you still interested?" And I was like, "Yes, hell yes, I'm still interested."
Yeah.
So from that point forward, that was like a spark. That's something that really motivated me. Now, Navy special operator, nuclear weapons theory and all the complexities of diving very deep and disarming explosives underwater. All that was cool and complex, but that's not a profit and loss statement. That's not a business plan. That's not business. So of all the things I had done throughout my military career, writing a business plan and pitching and things of that nature was not something I was experienced at, but I knew how to learn.
Yeah.
So I went to our local resources. I learned how to spell the word business, basically, put together a business plan, went and found an investor, went and found a banker. And so that's the long answer. The short answer is my military skydiving career is what led to me developing, owning, and operating iFly Virginia Beach at this point.
Love it. Love it. And you've built it to, you said before there's 40 people and obviously loving it, loving what you do. And it's given you enough time to go and do some expansion in podcasts and keynotes and, mate, donating your time for a full day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And something I learned early in my military career is when you build these assets, when you build this credibility, use them. Don't
Yeah.
leave them sit on a shelf somewhere, because it's after a certain amount of time it becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
So just really, I had this credibility as being the guy who was responsible for the training when I was on active duty. I was well positioned to discuss the military training requirements and what this thing would look like if we built it here in Virginia Beach, and the tourism aspect and all those numbers are readily available. And so we put this thing together, and 10 years later now, here we are 10 years later.
And absolutely smashing it out of the ballpark, to use a baseball term. Mate, you've written a book, Elevate Your Leadership. Name of the podcast are the same name. You talk a lot about in your book the importance of health and wellness for leaders in their teams, and you also talk about how it's critical for the success of the organization, and yet often those sort of areas is overlooked. I'd love you to talk about that because before we press record, you said there's around six things that people need to be looking at or leaders need to be looking at around that. Just before we delve into that, I'll just share a story. I used to work at one of the largest telecommunications companies here in Australia, a company called Telstra, and there was people in that business who wore like a badge of honor the fact they did not take any leave. They worked extraordinary hours and literally were chained to the desk. Now, they were examples of people who perhaps did not take health and wellness seriously, and they aged exponentially, incredibly
Yeah.
fast. I now know running workshops and being a coach and being a mentor and running a business as well that recovery is so important. And if you look at all of the elite sporting teams, they talk about recovery as one of the key pillars of high performance. Can we talk about your perspective on this and how you see this as, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like this is a true differentiator that a lot of organizations and leaders are either, for whatever reason, not focusing on or not focusing enough on.
So a true differentiator for sure. I had on my podcast Coach David, this wonderfully talented kind of executive coach in the physical sense, exercise. And when he engages clients, he has them, say, "Hey, where does exercise, health and wellness, fitness, where does that fit in your top 5 priorities?" He said, if it made the list, it was number 5, right?
Wow.
And that goes to what you said in your experience with these people who pride themselves on very little sleep and chained to the desk and all that. And in the military, I hate to say it, but during my time, there was a component of that as well. But in the special operations world, daily rigorous PT, physical training, above and beyond what the average human being can do was a requirement. I mean, just in our schooling, in our training, you had to do that. So at some point, the seed of fitness gets planted in people who do what I did. And then fast forward a bunch of years, you realize the value of that in the team dynamic. You know, I've had I told one story about when I made a mistake and how my leader handled it, but there's been other situations where my leader has said, "Hey Bob, let's go out on a run, figure this out." Or I've said to my teammates, "Hey, let's go out on a run and figure this out," or "Let's go on a swim." You know, we're big time into open ocean swims or a fin. We call it a fin. Let's go on a fin and let's figure this out. But fitness was a key component to the team dynamic. And you know, back then we heard strong body, strong mind, you know, things of that nature. But what really happens to the mind, the chemistry of the body, to the heart? What really happens when we do this, and why are people who pay attention to fitness so successful?
Mm.
And 4 years into my business, we opened in 2015. In 2019, I felt some fog setting in. And all the energy I had and all the clarity I had to put this business together and run all over town and meet everybody and anybody and pitch and pitch and pitch, I just didn't feel like I had that anymore. And, you know, staring at the same spreadsheet for 2 hours, not making any progress. And so something was happening. Anyway, through a veterans program that I was so lucky to have available to me, I went to a place called the Marcus Institute for Brain Health in Aurora, Colorado. And it was a 4-week program.
Mm-hmm.
I was in outpatient program, 8 hours a day for 4 weeks straight. And the things I learned in this program helped me tie it all together, and it helped me re-energize using the intelligence of fitness. You know, in my military career, it was the tough guy push through of fitness, not so much the intelligence, probably the opposite of that, actually. But now we understand physiologically, chemically, why everything works and how you can maximize it. And what I learned in this program, I thought to myself, why didn't I learn this in 5th grade? Why doesn't everybody learn this in 5th grade? And this should be repeated, you know, because things that are important are worth revisiting and repeating on some reoccurring basis.
Mm.
So that's kind of how things started to come together in my mind. And and what I learned out there, I summarized in these 6 factors that we pay attention to every day. They didn't present it this way, but at the end of it, you know, that's just kind of the way I digested it, and that's the way I took my notes, and that's the way I ultimately wrote it in the book. Those 6 things are rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart link, and lifelong learning. All 6 of those, believe it or not, including lifelong learning, are physiological in nature, meaning through movement, through diet, through hydration, through practice and rehearsal, we can enhance all 6 of those things every day. And so what I talk about in the book is we have to pay attention to those 6 things every single day. Now, I express those 6 things in the book as a Venn, right? 6 intersecting circles, because if I'm well rested and well hydrated and well nourished, the exercise that I do is going to benefit my brain and heart communication much more than if I wasn't well hydrated or if I wasn't well nourished. So all 6 of these things, and I created something called the general leadership law, which says that rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart link, and lifelong learning, they're so interrelated via that Venn that a change in one, positive or negative, will have a corresponding change in all of the others.
Yeah.
If I'm not well hydrated, my heart rate goes up, my blink rate goes up, my executive function, my ability to see, hear, think goes down. It's really that simple. So
Love
always,
that.
always by my side.
Well, you've got one of them. I've only got a small 600 ml one, right? But I go through about four of those a day.
There you go. There you go. And so let's hit that real quick. I'm going to give you the formula. So a couple of big takeaways here. Your body weight in pounds, and you guys probably do
Kilos.
kilograms, kilos, but half of your body weight in pounds is how many ounces of water you should consume every single day.
Is
I
that
weigh
right?
180 pounds. I should drink 90 ounces of water every day. That's three of these. Three of these
Okay.
a day
Yeah.
is what I should consume. All right. Normally I meter it, right? So if you know the formula,
Yeah.
but you don't meter it, then it really doesn't do anything for you. So three Nalgene bottles a day, 32 ounces is my formula. That's minimum hydration, and that's water, by the way. The American Academy of Health Science says they say any fluid, they say any non-alcoholic fluid counts as hydration. For me, it's got to be water. So now I would submit that Bud Light counts as hydration.
You're saying that's because it's highly concentrated with water.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
What
like
about what about strong coffee?
so I mean I'm a caffeine drinker for sure. It's how do you tolerate caffeine? Number one,
Hmm.
but I would not count that as hydration, even though the American Academy of Health Science says you can.
Yeah.
I don't.
Hmm. So I love that. Rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain, heart link, and lifelong learning. Because as you were explaining that, if like I'm reflecting back on the people that I used to see in corporate, they weren't getting enough rest. Their nutrition was horrendous. They didn't get any exercise. They weren't learning anything new. Then you their and their lifelong learning, their ability to learn new things and be productive was significantly hampered. And yet their whole approach was just keep pushing, keep going, keep going, keep going. So
Yeah,
from a leadership point of view, in the work that you do now, and certainly running the business, but all the work you do with other organizations, how receptive are businesses to that? Because there are a lot of businesses, and I work in a sales realm, so a lot of sales teams are thinking, we got to get hit the number, hit the number, hit the number. So get on the phone, smile and dial, go and knock down doors, and go and do the
yeah,
pitching.
yeah,
How much are businesses and leaders within these businesses starting to recognize that it's not just about doing the work constantly, but more importantly, doing some of these things you're talking about in the six
yeah.
key things.
So, a super relative question because I'd say there's this kind of trend, there's this shift going on right now where organizations are starting to pay attention to this. But there's different levels of, oh yeah, we get gym memberships for people, they either don't use it or they go once a week or they go twice a week for 10 minutes, you know. Um, or you as a leader, you have to model the behavior and you
Mm,
have to preach it and you have to live it. And if it's not in your head and in your heart, no one's going to buy it. They're not going to
yeah.
believe it, right? So, so as a leader, you have to model it. Um, I would say the scenario you described, where people are just running full speed ahead and they're not paying attention to their health and wellness at all,
Yeah.
either the doctor tells them they've got a problem or they just feel it and they know it, right? At some point, it catches up with people. And I would say probably 80 to 90% of those people, they go, man, I've got to make a change. And they're
Mm,
they're willing and wide open at that point, especially if their doctor said, your days are numbered.
yeah.
Keep doing this and your days are numbered. One person who was a diabetic, I mean, this guy, super high performer, super hard charger, nicest guy in the world. But all he did was serve his customers 24/7. He didn't serve himself at all.
Yeah.
And he became diabetic. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, I'm going to wind up cutting one of your one of your feet. I'm going to have to remove if you keep going at this pace. Should it be the right or the left?
Wow.
And it turned this guy around. And not only did he lose a bunch of weight, but he now pays attention to these factors of health and he shares it with his team. So When I get, I work with groups, which would be like 10 people from 10 different organizations, and I work with teams, which would be like 10 people from the same organization.
Yeah.
And in the team dynamic, I would say it's easier to get people to like really buy in because they're going to go back and work with each other and they can be there and support each other. They all heard the same information from the same source. We developed the same language,
Mm.
and they can go back and support each other. When I work with groups, it really has to be a strong individual to take that on and say, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow up. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is I view things, all things leadership, and especially health and wellness. I approach it in what I call mono, stereo, surround sound, right? So mono, how does this principle affect me? Am I well rested right now? Am I ready to have this discussion? I mean, it's going on 7 o'clock in the evening here on the East Coast. Have I prepared myself to speak to Darren from Australia, who you're going on, what are you going on, 11 o'clock over there or something?
Nearly 10 a.m. Nearly 10
Yeah,
a.m.
nearly 10 a.m. So I had to prepare myself mentally and physically for this event. Am I ready for it? Yes, I am, because I was deliberate about making sure I was ready. That's the mono.
Yeah.
The stereo is how about the person, across the country from me, or how about the person across the table from me? Let's say you're having a negotiation or an interaction with an employee. What's their state of mind? And so in the mono, how am I doing? And the stereo, is this person ready for the discussion? And then in the surround sound, how do we make this available to the team? So in the mono, I'm taking care of myself. I'm modeling the behavior or the health and wellness. In the stereo, how do I make this immediately available to other people? And in the surround, how do I make this available to everybody?
Love it. Love it. And I love the fact you said even in the mono, it's what sort of modeling can I do? How do I show by example, not just talking a good game? How do I model by taking rest, taking breaks? And even like I'll go into corporates and I often ask the question of teams, how often, just put your hand up if you take a lunch break. And in Australia, it's amazing how many people in corporate do not take a lunch break. Or they get
Mm-hmm.
their lunch, they come back to the desk and they keep working. I said, no, you need
Mm-hmm.
to take a break. You need to change the environment. Go out and walk around the block, get some fresh air, take your shoes off, and feel the feeling of the grass on the base of your feet. Do something.
That's right. And the sun on your face,
Yeah,
if you're not opposed to that. But
yeah,
yeah, exactly. That's also a breath of fresh air. It's a second wind. It's re-energize, back to the rest, hydration, nutrition. That's exercise. That's move. Exercise doesn't mean run a marathon, go
no,
lift a bunch of weights. Exercise is movement.
yes,
So take that opportunity at lunch and go move a little bit. And there's something else called neuroplasticity. And again, I link all six of those things together. But when you elevate your heart rate to between 60 and 85% of your age recommended maximum, which for me, without doing all the math, it's about 100 beats per minute,
yeah,
which I can achieve on a brisk walk,
yeah.
or if I do several flights of stairs. When you elevate your heart rate to that level, you trigger neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to grow, change, adapt, and heal. You literally see better, think better, hear better by elevating your heart rate to that controlled level.
That is amazing because I was going to ask you about the brain heart link and how that because that when that happens, neuroplasticity kicks in and your ability now to take in new information, to think differently, to come up with ideas, to be more creative goes up. So that links into your lifelong learning component.
100%. So there's two things that I'm aware of that trigger neuroplasticity. One is that elevated heart rate, but lifelong learning, when you introduce new concepts to your brain, that also triggers neuroplasticity.
Mm,
So those two things, but the brain and the heart communicate, billions of times per day, whether you're awake or asleep. And the more healthy and robust that communication, the more effective you are, as a leader, as a father, as a husband, as a coach, all the
mm.
roles you have in your life, you're better at every single one of them, if you're caring and feeding for these six things every single day.
Love that. Love that. So, mate, I am conscious of time because it's nearly dinner or Bud Light time for you. You just show me a great big canister of water, so you might just
Gotta
have a Bud
hydrate.
Light to finish. So you're running programs like this. You're working with leaders, and whether it be working with members that are a team have come together from different organizations, all within a team. Are there some key tips that you give them? Because some people might come off a really low base, that they haven't done exercise, they haven't really thought about rest. Are there some practical tips that you give people in order to start, to at least start to build some momentum so that they
Right.
can get some consistency in some of these areas and make some real change?
Yeah. So, and this goes to the question you asked earlier too, and I didn't fully address it, but a lot of times, whether it's a team or a group, there are people who are not in good shape. And I'm not running a fitness clinic. I'm not some fitness coach going,
Do
40
another
seconds.
10
Let's go,
push-ups.
go. Right, exactly, exactly. Even though that's my military background, but that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is showing people how by paying attention to those six things, you get better. That's all there is to it. So, I'm carrying probably 10 more pounds than I want to. But that's not important to me. What's important to me is, am I energetic and clear headed throughout the day? That's what I'm seeking, physical energy and mental clarity. And then
Mm,
on top of that, getting ready to have my 60th birthday, my lab work. I'm concerned about my lab work, right? What's my glucose? What's my cholesterol? What's my creatine, et cetera. But all that gets better if you pay attention to those six things.
yeah.
But some very basic tips I would say is, I used to run um, 5 or 6 miles a day for most of my adult life. I haven't done that in 6 years. I've
Okay.
got lower back issues. I walk, and walking is probably more beneficial than running. If you're interested in weight loss, lowering your resting heart rate, um, not having joint soreness and movement and muscle issues, walking is probably one of the best things you can do.
Mm,
So I encourage everybody to go out your front door. If nothing else, go out your front door, walk in one direction for 20 to 30 minutes, and then turn around and come home. I mean, it's that easy depending on where you live. But walking for 45 to 60 minutes a day, 5 days a week, is probably one of the easiest and really most beneficial things that the average person can do.
yeah.
That has to be in conjunction with hydration, obviously. You have to take in that water. The other thing on hydration, drink 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning, before
Mm,
coffee, before anything else. We dehydrate when we sleep. Our spine dehydrates. Our spine is it retains a lot of moisture. And when we sleep, it gives off a lot of moisture. So you lubricate your spine, you awaken your mind, and you activate your digestive system, because we also go into a fasting state, right? So our
mm.
digestive system really slows down. So you reactivate all those systems just by drinking water. And there's something called cortisol awakening response. Everybody thinks I need coffee to get my energy in the morning. No, you need cortisol, which is naturally programmed into the human body to release first thing in the morning, and water enhances that cortisol release. So drink water
Got it.
first thing in the morning, go for that walk, shop the perimeter of the grocery store. That's where your fruits, your dairy, your vegetables, your meats, your poultry, that's unprocessed, healthy stuff.
Yeah.
If it's in a box or a bag, don't even buy it. Stay away from it. It's just really that simple. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So that's
Love
those
it.
are the things we dive deeper on when I do the course. And
Love it. Love it. Hey, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's been lots of great tidbits and gold nuggets there. Always like to ask people who listen to this, love to connect with the guest and find out more about what they do. Now, if they're going to Virginia Beach, obviously we've got to make sure they go to iFly and ask for
that's
Bob,
right.
right?
That's right.
Um, don't mention Exceptional Sales Letter Podcast because I can't guarantee he's going to give you a discount, but I can guarantee
I
he'll give
can.
you
I
a
can.
fantastic experience.
You mention it. I'll mention Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast or mention Darren Mitchell, and I will give you 20% off.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Happy days. Geez, I hope you can. Hope your team can handle that.
Oh, I got a great team. I am going to have to go tell them I said that, but
No, that's okay. That's all right. So, Bob, where can people connect with you, my friend?
for sure. So, robertpizzini.com is my website. That's robertpizzini.com. So, robertpizzini.com. And there's a contact form you can fill out there, and you can just learn more about a lot of the things that you and I discussed, Darren. And then bob@robertpizzini.com is my email. I'd love to hear from people. Just feedback on the podcast. Tell me what you think of Darren. Tell me. So I just love to hear from anybody who's interested in the type of discussion you and I had, because those are the people I really enjoy, being around. So robertpizzini.com, send me an email, bob@robertpizzini.com, or just walk through the front door at iFly Virginia Beach and ask for Bob.
Ask for Bob. That's it. Love it. So, mate, thank you so much for being on the podcast. If there was one parting gift that you had in terms of a leader listening to this who perhaps is not operating at their fullest potential, that you could leave them with in terms of making a small change, what would that be?
First thing you can do to make a small change is start hydrating properly. So I gave the formula earlier, and you will notice that immediately. If you're not doing 16 ounces of water right now, you will notice it tomorrow morning. If you do it tomorrow morning, the effect is immediate. Now, drink the proper amount throughout the day. You got to get up and go to the bathroom all day. Nothing wrong with that, because you push away from the desk, you move, you get circulation, you get re-energized. It's all good.
Yeah.
The other thing, last thing I would say is, when you are in Australia, they pronounce the red fruit tomato. Instead of, here we say tomato. In Australia, it's tomato.
Tomatoes.
And I love that.
So eat tomatoes. Eat tomatoes as if they're an apple.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Mate, absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Keep up the phenomenal work, and I look forward to following your progress as you continue to take over the world in terms of your leadership dominance, but also the success of the podcast and also the success of iFly. So thanks for being a great guest, my friend.
Darren, thank you so much for hosting a wonderful discussion.
Appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it, but also if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.